Now, where are we? Chapter 3, Plan Going Wrong. The dragons of the Dragon Rebellion attacked with full mind-numbing force, their chant at an unbearable pitch, diving, swooping, shrieking, shooting poison darts and terrible fire, shocking bolts of exploding lightning. Kamikaze and Fnotlat fired arrows at the swooping horrors as they clung desperately to the tilting island of ice, bucking and speeding madly down the river like an out-of-control sleigh ride. Inexplicably, Hurricane, the riding dragon, was still fast asleep. The roar of the waterfall downstream got louder and louder, growing into a great watery din of noise. And even in the night air, they could see billowing mist of spray swelling up above the forest ahead, like a cloud on a smoking volcano. The waterfall was very close now. One more bend and they would be rocketing over the edge. Hiccup and Fishlegs caused chaos and confusion by shooting at the attacking dragons from the back of the all but invisible deadly shadow. But the dragons were attacking in such nightmare numbers that it would be minutes before they overwhelmed the raft. Meow! Another Razorwing leapt from the rocky riverband and landed with an evil vulture grin and a scrape of razored wings on the other side of the ice island, dipping it downwards so violently that it was practically submerged. This plan's going really wrong, whispered Kamikaze as the Razorwing prepared to leap and slice, and bam! The bucking, jostling island of ice slammed into a rock and shattered into pieces, catapulting Kamikaze, Snotlout, the Razorwing and the Hurricane into the numbing cold of the river. The freezing shock of the water woke the Hurricane at last. With a screech of alarm, the poor creature started swimming, trying to disentangle its wet wings in the chaos of the raging rapids. Snotlout was still attached to Hurricane by a long chain, and so he was dragged behind the panicking riding dragon, buffeted over and half drowned by the water. Like an untidy scarecrow, Fishlegs valiantly jumped from the deadly shadow onto Windwalker's back so that he could help try and catch Kamikaze. Hiccup urged the deadly shadow on, and Fishlegs flew Windwalker down through the hail of Razorwing darts towards the blonde head of Kamikaze bobbing in the river. "Down, Shadow, down!" Hiccup shouted. The triple-headed deadly shadow swooped and missed as a manic surge of water swept Kamikaze out of the dragon's reaching talons. Roar! The sound of thousands and thousands of tons of gushing river water tumbling into a waterfall was absolutely terrifying, and it was just below them now. The river rushed over the edge in a flooding, rushing tumult. Just the second before she was swept over, Kamikaze got one little monkey hand around the rope dangling from the deadly shadow above and was lifted clear of the deluge. But the Hurricane went plunging over, plummeting downwards. Snotlout and Hurricane would have crashed to their deaths on the rocks below if the Hurricane had not dragged its wings out of the water in the nick of time. Screaming, the Hurricane soared upwards. Oh, look, that's the great waterfall. I like that picture. Hang on, did I show you the picture before? No, I haven't showed you any of the pictures. There they are. There they are about to go over the waterfall. And there they are actually going over the waterfall. Can you see? Yeah. And there, that's the waterfall from the distance. And then flying away. Love that. And would have crashed their deaths onto the rocks below if the Hurricane had not dragged its wings out of the water in the nick of time. Screaming, the Hurricane soared upwards, yanking Snotlout with him. Fishlegs steered Windwalker beneath the dangling Kamikaze, and she dropped onto Windwalker's back in mid-air. He then flew Windwalker alongside the Hurricane, and Kamikaze jumped up across onto the Hurricane's back so that she could heave the dangling Snotlout up on the chains and into the saddle. The three dragons now wheeled about, and the deadly shadow shot back upriver towards the hideout in the mountains, closely followed by Windwalker and the terrified, snorting Hurricane on a pack of howling, murderous Dragon Rebellion dragons driven mad by the arrow attack. And sensing a meal on the horizon, they didn't have long to get back to safety. And now Hiccup heard a sound that really chilled his blood. This was far worse than a mere waterfall. It was a distant, screaming, baying bawl, the inevitable result of the awful chant of the Red Rage. It was the roar of the dragon, the of the Dragon Rebellion dragons must have flown up to his stronghold in the north and woken him. Even at this distance, Hiccup could just make out the word, "He must never grow up. I will hunt him down. I will swoop him from the heavens and obliterate him." By him, the Dragon Furious was referring to Hiccup. Far away to the north, out of that ice and that fire, those volcanic bubbling pools, there rose a dark shape so unimaginably large that it blotted out the moon. Each beat of its immense dark wings took it across a vast extent of territory at astonishing speed as it headed south, straight towards them in the murderous mountains, its eyeballs leaking fire and its great mouth screaming murder and butchery and everything. Look, that's a picture of the Dragon Furious attacking. In one of my dragon books, I've got a really... Oh yeah, let me show you the picture in colour. Because I always really like it when you can see a picture. Oh yes, here he is in colour. The sea dragons. This is the Book of Dragons. Hang on. Sea dragons. Doomfangs. That's Doomfangs. That's Leviathorgans. Hang on. Where is Woden's Nightmares, Thor's Thunder. Here he is. The Sacrigagonus Giganticus Maximus, with the lightning coming out of his eye and the fire. He's a very impressive dragon. Yes. We need to make it back to the hideout now, Hiccup yelled hysterically. There were so many dragons of the Dragon Rebellion that they looked like a mass of thunderclouds or a plague of locusts, thousands and thousands and thousands strong. They were flying so close to one another that every now and then the razor wings accidentally sliced the head off any dragons flying next to them. Oh God. Oh, that's horrible. And scaly heads dropped randomly into the gorge, still screaming and shooting fire or lightning or poison arrows. Oh, that's horrible. Hiccup let the deadly shadow steer while he lay backwards on his tummy like a rear gunner, firing arrows continuously at the pursuing Dragon Rebellion, trying to make sure he didn't accidentally hit Fishlegs or Windwalker or Snout-Out and Kamikaze on the Hurricane. The flying conditions were extraordinarily difficult. The shifting fog, the zigzagging, twisting gorge, and spindly, needle-like rock formations looming up unexpectedly out of the mist. It was a little like shooting rapids in the air. Latterly, Windwalker, the Deadly Shadow, and the Hurricane were some of the fastest riding dragons in the barbaric world. Only a silver phantom flies faster, so they just about kept ahead of the screaming, spitting, howling horror of the Dragon Rebellion in pursuit. Hiccup tried not to listen to the deeper, darker threat in the background, the great winged shape of the Dragon Furious, whose ferocious bellow was even louder than the red rage. Furious sailed nearer and nearer, like a great hunting owl of the night time, swooping down on some little mice who had incautiously left their mouse hole for a second. "I will tear the world apart in the hunt for him. I will kill him myself." Windwalker and the Deadly Shadow rounded a corner, and with passionate relief, Hiccup saw a gigantic spur of rock looming out of the fog right in front of them. High up on a pointed pinnacle, with a breathtaking view over the entire surrounding landscape, there was a tree balanced so precariously on a cliff top it was almost in the act of falling off. There was the tree. And beneath the tangled roots of this tree there was the underground treehouse, kept so secret and so well hidden that there were barely half a dozen beings alive who, in the world, that were aware of its existence. Alvin the Treacherous would have given his very best hook to know where that underground treehouse was. The Dragon Furious too had his dragons hunting high and low for it day and night. It had once been the underground hideout that Fishlegs' mother, Termagant, had made long ago when she was a little girl growing up in the murderous mountains. The Deadly Shadow, who had previously been Termagant's dragon, had shown it to them, and Hiccup and his friends had been hiding there, waiting to meet up with the dragon markers on Doomslay Eve. Hiccup had never been so glad to see the hideout. He hauled on the reins and brought the Deadly Shadow to a sudden plunging halt in the air. "Take the others to the underground treehouse, and I'll hold up the Dragon Rebellion," Hiccup shouted to Fishlegs as he rocketed past on the back of the Windwalker. Thor knows how much Fishlegs heard at the speed he was going. The Hurricane zoomed after Fishlegs on Windwalker in a maddened stream of terror. Hiccup braced himself. He had 6 arrows lined up on the Deadly Shadow's back, and he fixed one to his bow with trembling fingers. had the advantage of the Dudley Shadow's invisibility, so that the Dragon Rebellion dragons would not know where his arrows were coming from. Timing was everything. The first Dragon Rebellion dragons plunged around the corner, and Hiccup let fly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 arrows. With a shriek of shock, the first dragon at Razor Wing was hit, went spiralling into the pack behind, and then plummeted down into the gorge. It was a brief, squalling moment of confusion, but it was enough. By the time the pack had righted themselves and recovered their concentration, their prey had disappeared. Windwalker, the Hurricane, and their riders had vanished down the entrance to the underground tea house, and the Dragon Rebellion, drooling and enraged, could not see Hiccup hovering only 20 feet away from them on the back of the Deadly Shadow, which had reared up to conceal its rider. The Razorwings swam in the air, barking at each other, and eventually set off further down the gorge, where they supposed the prey must have gone. Hiccup breathed again, and then it happened. The chapter 4 is called Two Red Eyes Suspended in the Air. I don't remember this at all. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. Anyway, we'll see tomorrow. Two red eyes suspended in the air. Can't remember who they belong to. Anyway, we'll find out tomorrow. See you then.